Good day everyone, we are the Group I. My name is Marjorie Fernandez. Together with me is Ms. Teresa Ang, Ms. Irene May Auman, and Mr. Lawrence Cabanyog. So we are going to discuss the topic, History of the Development of Education in the Philippines. But before that, let me introduce to you our three main objectives of this discussion. First objective is to identify and plot the different system of educational system during several era and the journey in basic education curricular reforms. Second is to identify the basic education acts in the Philippines. And lastly, to identify and explain the management structure of DepEd. In this topic, you might encounter these following terms. First is compulsory, which means required by law or a rule, or it is obligatory. Second, commission, which means a group of people officially charged with a particular function. Third, implementation, which means the process of putting a decision or plan into effect or execution. Fourth is liberalize, which means remove or loosen restrictions on something, but typically on economic or political system. And lastly, secularize, which means disassociate or separate from religious or spiritual concerns. Education in the Philippines has undergone several stages of development from pre-Magellanic times until present. So in this timeline, you will see the historical development of the Philippine educational system. So let's start with 15th century. So this century was classified as pre-Magellanic times, which means before the arrival of Magellan in our country. So during this time, educational system was informal, unstructured, and devoid of methods, which means there is no organized system about education. Also, more vocational trainings and less academics by the parents and the tutors. When we say vocational trainings, these are the involvement of cookery skills, horticulture, housekeeping, and tailoring. And when we say academics or the 3 R's, these are the reading, writing, and arithmetic, which involves the mathematical skills. Their teachers are their parents or their tribal leaders. Next is 18th century. So this century was classified as Spanish system since this is the arrival of Spaniards in our country. So the educational system way back then was religion-oriented. And also, instead of tribal tutors and tribal leaders, their teachers were the Spanish missionaries or the Jesuits. Also, the education was just for elite. However, they released an educational decree of 1863 that states one primary school for boys and girls each town under the responsibility of government. Therefore, it is free and public. Also, the educational system back then was suppressed, inadequate, and controlled by the Spaniards. Next is 19th century. So this century was classified as American era since this is the arrival of Americans in our country. So the educational system way back then was adequate, secularized, and free public school system was first established upon the recommendation of Schoolman Commission. Also, during 19th century, schools that closed during the defeat of Spanish was reopened August 29, 1898 by Secretary of Interior. So, Secretary of Interior was the head of educational system before. The Burgos Institute in Malolos, Military Academy in Malolos, and Literary University of the Philippines were established. A free and compulsory elementary education was established by Malolos Constitution. Free primary instruction that trained the people for the duties of citizenship and avocation was enforced by the Taft Commission as per President McKinley. Chaplains such as minister, priest, pastor, and non-commissioned officers was assigned to teach using English as a medium of instruction. And we all know today that most of our subjects are English, and we are still using English as medium of instruction. And lastly, high centralized public school system was installed in 1901 by the Philippine Commission by virtue of Act number 74. However, the virtue of Act number 1974 resulted to shortage of teachers. Thus, Philippine Commission authorized the Secretary of Public Instruction to bring 600 teachers from the USA. These teachers were classified as Thomasites since the person who brought them in the Philippines was Thomas. The rest of this timeline, you will see the development of the name of the Philippine educational system throughout the years. And that would be all for the historical development of the Philippine educational system, and thank you for listening.
Governance of Basic Education Act. So what is Governance of Basic Education Act? The high school system supported by provincial governments, special education institutions, School of Arts and Trades, and agricultural school and commerce and marine institutes were established in 1902 by the Philippine Commission. Shall begin at the national level, the division, regions, school, and learning center. In 1908, the Philippine Legislature approved Act No. 1870, which created the University of the Philippines. The Organizations Act of 1916 provided the Philippinization of all department secretaries except the Secretary of Public Instruction, so the policy and principles for the governance of basic education shall be translated into programs, projects, and offered to fit local needs. Japanese educational policy were embodied in Military Order No. 2 in 1942. The Philippine Executive Commission established the Commissions of Education, Health and Public Welfare, and School were reopened in June 1942. On October 14, 1943, the Japanese-sponsored republic created the Ministry of Education. On February 27, 1945, the Department of Instruction was made part of the Department of Public Instruction. So in this period, the Japanese curriculum, they focus on the Tagalog, Philippine history, and character. They also use Nippongo for the Filipino, and they stopped using English language before. Executive Order No. 94. In 1947, by virtue the Department of Instruction was changed to Department of Education. The regulation and supervision of public and private schools belonged to the Bureau of Public and Private Schools. So, during this period, the regulations and supervisions of public and school belonged to the Bureau of Public and Private Schools. Department of Education and Culture, by virtue of Proclamation 1081 and the Ministry of Education and Culture in 1978 by virtue of PD number 1397. So PD meaning is the Prudential Decree. So they have 13 regional offices were created and major organizational changes were implemented in the educational system. The Education Act of 1982 created the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports in 1987. By virtue of Executive Order No. 117, the structure of DECS as embodied in EO No. 117 has practically remained unchanged until 1994 when the Commissions on Higher Education, the CHEDs, in 1995, when the Technical Education and Skill Development Authority, or TESDA, the Congressional Commission's Education, or EDCOM, Congress to pass Republic Act 7722 and Republic Act 7796 in 1994, creating the CHED, or Commission on Higher Education, and TESDA, or the Technical Education and Skills the Development Authority, or TESDA. So, the theoretical education system focused its mandates to basic education, which cover elementary, secondary, non-formal education. So, TESDA means it is to provide the directions, policy, and programs and standards toward quality technical educations and skills. So, CHED is responsible for higher education. So CHED is a body covering both public and private. So Republic Act 9115 provide the overall framework for school head empowerment by strengthening the leadership rules and school-based management within the context of transparency and local accountability. In August 2001, Republic Act 9155, otherwise called the Governance of Basic Education Act, was passed, transforming the name of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports to the Department of Education's DepEd. So the pur- uh, the the governance of Basic Education Act, the goal of Basic Education Act is to provide the school age populations and youth adults and with skills, knowledge, and value to become caring, self-reliant, productive, and be a good citizen.
Hello everyone, my name is Teresa Ang and I will talk about the Department of Education Management structure. So, the Department of Education in August 2001, Republic Act 9155, otherwise called the Governance of the Basic Education Act, changes the Department of Education, Culture and Sports or the DEX into the Department of Education. The basic goal of this department is to provide the school-age population and the young adults with skills, knowledge, and values to become caring, self-reliant, productive, and patriotic citizens. So the department is divided into two major structural components to carry out its mandates and objectives. The first office is the central, and the second is the field office. So the central office maintains the overall administration of basic education at the national level. So then under the central office are the field offices that are responsible for the regional and the local coordination and the administration of the department's mandate. So the Department of Education underwent a restructuring of its office functions and staffing in 2015. The new organizational structure under the Department Order Series of 2015 number 52 is also known as the new organizational structures of the Central, Regional, and the School Division offices of the Department of Education. So this is the new structure of the central and the field office of education. There are five strands under the office of the secretary, and each strand has four secretaries and four assistant secretaries that are assigned in the following areas. So these are the five major strands of the office of the secretary. So the nature of work of the office of secretary is to provide an overall leadership and the direction at the national level. So next is the office of the undersecretaries is is to advise and assist the secretary in the formulation and implementation of the department policies, plans, and programs. It also oversees all the operational activities of the department for which he will be assigned and held responsible by the secretary. Next, below the undersecretaries are the assistant secretaries. So this advises and assists the secretary and the undersecretary in formulation and implementation of the department policies, plans, and programs. So it also coordinates the programs and projects of the department and the local offices in the country. So this is the organizational structure of the central office. So first, as you can see, the office of the secretary, down, the Teacher Education Council Secretariat, and the Internal Audit Service. So below these three branches, or the three offices, are the five major branches of the office of the secretary. the curriculum and instruction, the governance and operations, the legal and legislative affairs, the finance and administration, and the strategic management. So each strand has different sub-strands, and all these five accumulated strands will go to the field offices, from the office of secretary down to the field operations or the field offices, which are the regional offices, the school division offices in the school, and the learning centers. So the five strands like that I have mentioned earlier, these are their functions. So first, the curriculum and instruction. It focuses on the delivery of the relevant and effective basic education. So, a basic education curriculum. So, this focuses on the curriculum itself and the alignment of the materials, the modules, the books being used by the school or the teacher. Next is the finance and administration. This focuses on the financial support and financial help of the organization in the in the um, in the local offices and the local schools itself. So it is the support of the organization as a whole. Next, the third one is the governance and operations. This ensures that its capacity to continuously improve and be strategic in the managing the environment for which teaching and learning takes place. So all of the memorandums, all of the regulations, all of the um, agreements that came from the central office are articulated and created in this strat, so the governance and operations. So next, the fourth one is the legal and the legislative affairs. All of the legal matters, all of the legal agendas are being built in this strand. So lastly is the strategic management, focuses on the long-term plan of the department. So this focuses on the directions interface with the internal and external environment and stakeholders. So again, it's a long-term. They articulate long-term plans for the development of the department. So alongside with this branch or with these strands are the five attached agencies: Early Childhood Care and Development Council, the National Book Development Board, the National Council for Children's Television, the National Museum, and the Philippine High School for the Arts. So these five agencies are katuwang ng department in helping the department to be successful in providing a high uh, quality education for the Filipino student. So alongside with these five agencies are the three coordinating council, which are Adopt a School Program Coordinating Council, the Literacy Coordinating Council, the Teacher Education Council. So these three councils are the coordinating council in which the NGOs or the LGUs will coordinate to if there are they have a plan in having a volunteer work in the schools or in the learning center. So these three coordinating councils will be tapped. And after the central office, we'll now go to the field offices. There are 17 regional offices in the Autonomous Region and Muslim Mindanao in the ARMM. And each regional offices are headed by a regional director. And in case of the ARMM, they have a regional secretary. So this is the organizational structure of the regional office. Again, after the OSEC or the office of the secretary, we'll now go to the office of the regional director. And then this regional director has 8 strands, and these 8 strands will be accumulated and will go through the school division in. After the regional office, will now go to the school divisions. So the school divisions, 221 provincial and city school divisions, each headed by a school division superintendent. And assisting the school division offices are 2,602 school districts, and each headed by a district supervisor. So this is the organizational structure of the school division. After the um, after the regional office, we'll now go to the division office. So this office of the school division superintendent, and then they have also the two strands, which are the curriculum implementation division and the school governance operation division. Each have different field of work. So after this accumulation of the two strands of this division office, we'll go to the directly to the school and learning centers. So this under the supervision of the division offices are 62,605 schools in the Philippines, broken down as follows. So 49,209 elementary schools, in which 38,648 public and 10,561 private schools. The 13,396 are secondary schools, in which 7,976 public and 5,420 private schools. All of these schools, whether private or public schools, have one primary goal, which is to provide a, a high quality education for the Filipino students, for them to become a civic competent one and to be equipped or fully equipped with 21st century skills and be a global civic competent one. So next would be the journey in the basic education. Thank you for listening.